trying to stay out of it. This is Harry Hilligenthal. Did I say it right?
Hi, Lincoln.
I'm going to mess it up so many times.
Not bad.
From, I just know him as Harry, and I've known him for about 4 years now. From the Iowa Association School Board, and he'll be working with us tonight to kind of explain what his goals and things are tonight. But Harry's no stranger to this. Actually, he was working with 2 districts even last night through some of these same type of things, and so we are not alone in our discussion. So I'll turn it over to you, Harry.
My needs. Anybody need to borrow a pen? Keep a pen. There you go. Send me around. That'd be great. Send around this way. And I know, I'll tell CJ, my colleague, I think these are the skinny markers, but I'm never sure, so. Thank you. Wanted you to know, so thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's a nice day. I was looking for a little more sunshine, but still a nice day for the drive over. And I'll come the shorter way next time. So I see the lost time as I kept looking at my cell phone. It was getting longer. And I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense. I'm on the county roads at the end and maybe going a little faster at 55. Not quite getting done. So, Brian and Tracy and Nick and I had a chance to talk by phone, I don't know, probably a week and a half ago, somewhere in there. Any comments either of you'd want to make in terms of just kind of, hopes for a night? And, yeah. Anything you guys want to add? Best hopes?
Best hopes?
Yeah.
Great communication.
Your end?
No, I agree with Tracy. I think we need to get back to open communication and concentrate on the kids and what's good.
Perfect. And I appreciated their guidance in terms of a couple ideas were on my mind. They said, I don't think we need to do that piece, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So pass over that chunk and move on to a couple other pieces. I in my head, I partitioned it off kind of in 3 chunks. The first part probably be the shortest, but just a little bit of revisiting. And what do you want for your kids as you look out the next 4 or 5 years? What are you most hopeful for? Because without that, a quick revisit on the other conversation isn't as rich as it can be. That's what I find. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that. And a piece with it will be a little bit of reflection on, so how is the partnership and the sharing that you have been engaged in over recent years, how is that helping you reach what you want for kids, achieve what you want for your kids? And then probably the middle and the last 2 sections, in my head I'm thinking probably wartime, and one of them is, okay, with any arrangement, any districts in the state, it's really healthy to step back and say, we've acknowledged here are the benefits, here's what's helping us move forward, here are the things that are roadblocks, and what are the ways around those roadblocks? What are those roadblocks? How might we work our way around those and continue to move forward in our journey? And then the last section is more around, okay, given this conversation, what does it mean in terms of next steps for us as 2 districts? What are those big things that need to be on our radar screen as next steps moving forward? As 2 board teams working collectively as a team, and what I find, to be honest, is in any district in the state virtually, there's always, almost always, this gap or lag, whatever you want to call it, between the conversations board teams and board superintendents are having and where the community is relative to that. And it's always a challenge about how do we talk about some topics that at times may not be easy to talk about. How do we have those conversations without, and get ourselves organized, what we think are next steps, and do that in ways without creating an unintended raising of concerns across the communities and misunderstanding. So how do you do that? If you don't have those conversations, that limits the power of your planning moving forward. When you do have those conversations, it's easy for communities, and particularly folks that don't even have kids in school, which tends in most communities to be a majority, to read all kinds of things into what those conversations may be about. Fair enough? So, given that, what I'd ask you to do is, I usually have 3 times the amount of things planned that we'll actually get through. So I'm prepared to change gears in different ways. This is your work session, it needs to work for you. In my head, I commented to Brian and Tracy and Nick, thinking a couple of hours. If we're close to finishing an important piece up, that takes 2 hours and 15 minutes. Go 2:15, and if we're done in an hour and 45, and we feel like we've accomplished things that are helpful, we stop at an hour and 45. So I'll give you a ballpark, somewhere 9-ish one side or the other, 9:50 to finish up. Comments or clarifications? I love the job I have. I've been doing this for about 14, 15 years, and I can tell you in the last month, in working with board teams across the state, 5 or 6 board teams I've met with where I may have gone out thinking this was really the topic, but when we're out at the table, really find out that some underlying things are really what they want to talk about. So that's the part in my head where we'll make adjustments and shift gears as we need to. So, okay, please just call me Harry until Brian. Did you put in the plug and ask them not to switch name tags for at least the first hour? Maybe the first hour, okay. Anybody been switching name tags? Tracy, on your end, look okay? All right.
We're good.
All right, well, I wouldn't know the difference anyway. So. All right, would you please put your name on the front of your packet, because we're gonna, this is not a sit and get for 2 hours. I don't want to sit and get for 2 hours. Hopefully this is one of the longer times to talk. And we're gonna do some working in 2s or 3s for part of it, and then come back and talk as a whole group. And then a couple times we're gonna break into a couple of chunks that have about half of you from each district working in groups. And again, we'll bring that back to the whole conversation. As Nick and I talked, he's gonna float some as I do. I want this to really rest on word conversation. He's gonna help me describe when we're trying to pull off key themes for the evening. So I'm going to ask you to go right to page 3 in your packet. They're numbered in the middle of the bottom page. And I should always forget this on the front end. My direct line, my email address, they're all there. All are asking to use the Home Depot model. You can do it. We're here to help. So just ask. Get calls all the time. And if you're not sure the questions you have, who's got an answer, ask them. I'll steer you in the right direction. So, I'd like you to think about these 3 things. You roll out, think ahead and dream a little bit 4 years down the road. And if it helps you, think of your current 8th graders and ask yourself, what do I really want for our kids when they graduate, those 8th graders, 4 years from now? What do we really want for them? And look at your upper elementary kids on about 4th grade and say, you know, what's something I really want for those kids as they transition to high school down the road? Part of that larger vision, what do you really want for your kids? After you get a couple ideas down there, I'll ask you to just, on your own, reflect on number 2. What kind of board teams plural, and team singular? What do you have to be like in order to provide what you said you want your kids to be able to achieve 4 years down the road? What's that mean for what you as a team and your leadership has to be like? What's it need to look like, sound like? And then last, just a sentence, phrase, what are your best hopes for tonight? Doesn't matter if I've got my ideas in mind, but I'm here to facilitate your conversation, what's going to work for you, not what I think. So that's your chance to weigh in on what you hope to walk away with after investing 2 hours of your time. Fair enough? Okay, jot some things down, and we'll start to get to talking about these in a couple of minutes. embarrassed to talk, I'll ask you just around the table quickly and share with the whole group what your best hopes are for number 3. What you hope to accomplish. Why don't you get us started, we'll just sit around the table.
Open discussion.
Okay, thank you.
That 12 people could focus on the same goal, which would be the best education possible for our students.
People speak their true thoughts.
The team who has students on focus at all times and community support to help follow through on that focus.
I don't think anything will come out of tonight. It's going to take more than 2 or 3 hours to decide this.
Yeah, okay, that helps, thank you.
Open, honest communication.
That's what
Try to resolve some of the differences.
Okay.
That we all speak honestly and openly and know that we are committed to one another for the long haul.
Open communication, understand where each of the boards stand and why we are here for the kids of both districts.
Work together as a team to be able to talk things through.
they skipped over me. I hope everyone here realizes that this is a district made up of 4 communities that all need each other.
You want to add in your best hopes?
I'd say it sounds pretty good. If we can get that done.
I think Jeff's right, I'm not so, I think he can make some headway and lay some groundwork to help build some clarity around what he sees as next steps. I'm not necessarily hopeful, but I'm not naive to think, well, very seldom am I out somewhere on the road where, one night there's like this, the clouds open and people say, aha, I'm set to go. So I get that. And that's another piece I just add to the table. Sometimes, 3/4 of the time my humor is timely. 1/4 of the time my wife will go, Gary, people aren't always going to read you right. So I'm apologizing in advance if the inopportune time for my humor comes out. Sometimes I enjoy hanging out with people, so if something comes out odd, just apologize in advance. So, all right, here's what I'd like you to do on the next part. Since we have 5 folks from Orville Arthur, right, and 7 from Battle Creek Ida Grove, is ask each of the Orville Arthur folks to connect with one board member from Battle Creek Ida Grove, and then a couple of you from Battle Creek Ida Grove form a threesome. And you sit at a table, you can move the other end of the room, you can stand in the hallway, I don't care where. But just take a couple minutes and share your response to questions 1 and 2. And I want you to not only share, but be listening, because then in a little bit, I'm going to ask you to find one other new partner from the other district. And the third time, I'm going to say, hook up with somebody from your own board team. And so you're going to have 3 go-arounds over the course of time here. So be listening for what you're hearing across the various board members, all right? So go ahead and find somebody and have your first conversation for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Well, you get to oh, wait, how's that hard?
Okay, number 1.
So Tracy.
That's what I was going to do. I kept my notes.
I am.
I've actually similar continued quality education that I put. But they should want to
8th graders, I want them to be
4 years from now, I prioritize organize. I don't think our current board is short-term. Our first ever business that was 3 years ago. They're asking all the children.
I want them to amend 3 years so that they can
Coming, the time to
experience
try to locate our organization, try for the first kind of event spot. Yeah, I mean, people want us to do what this year. It's just, when I did 4 years in my mind, I was like, seriously,
Well, I said the same as above, dating, but I hope that our fourth grade will come in high school with an updated facility that incorporates and enhances their education.
stability.
And
I think
include
the
through
facility is huge. When I hear our communities talking about
Okay,
That group.
find a new partner from the other district. Again, we'll have a couple groups that'll have 3 people in it. And we visit on those.
I gotta turn you away. No idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to the three. I know that sounds bad.
No, right?
So we're both guys. That way it's really good. I have 4 at home.
I'll go first.
Everybody's had it, but that is
Similar, we need to be open-minded, communicate truthfully, and adapt to our needs and Yeah, we talked more about the inequality.
Oh, right, right.
I said that the 8th graders have 4 years of college, career, and or life, so they can be productive members of society, so they include all the advanced classes, remedials, or others to assist them, and in order to encourage them along so that they are prepared for whatever they choose. And for the 4th
Okay,
grade,
then-
it's the same thing, except that the facilities are all
Hook up with somebody on your own board team, and again, there will be probably at least one group that has 3 in it. So go ahead and connect with somebody, at least one person from your own board team to share how you did. What's your trip? Somebody else that you've not talked to yet.
Where are you?
Yep, still for questions 1 and 2. Still questions 1 and 2. Your own board, Yep, so OA folks connect with another OA folk and
Trust me.
I only have a couple of choices, because I've been at 3.
yeah, you know what? Radar, but he's not done a good job of running too fast and moving some of those.
Yeah.
We figure out. You're asking.
What's that?
You're asking.
Yeah. I've never done that. I wasn't married.
Okay, and if you feel, there's always that tension between who's still on a roll and talking and who's saying what's next, Harry, so just kind of have to guess. Nick, if you'd capture some notes on this, because my handwriting is not real good, and when I'm facilitating and writing at the same time, it's really bad, so type, handwrite, whatever, that'd be great. So what, you've now had 3 short conversations. What kinds of things are you hearing in response to that first one? Things you really want for your kids 4 years from now? What kinds of things in your small group discussions have come up? Okay, college readiness. Who else had that or something similar?
Career ready, we all have.
Yeah, no, no, elaborate on that. Or career ready,
Be ready for the workforce.
or technical school, and you know as well as I do anymore, it's the same stuff. Kids need the same rigorous, coming out of high school, coursework, no matter which track, for most kids. And who knows, I graduate next year, and I think I'm going to career technical school. What happens 2 years later, I change my mind and decide I'm going in a related job in science, math, or technology, or I decide I want to go to a 2-year community college or a 4-year. If I haven't had the right stuff, where am I? Dead meat. So it's the same stuff most kids need, so they've got the full array of life choices. Another one. What's another?
Stability.
Unpack that a little bit. What did that stability like what? Just add a little bit of detail. What's that look like? What's that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
We talked about stability and being reorganized.
Okay.
We hope in
Yeah.
4 years, we said, gosh, we hope we're reorganized as OABCIG. I think the long-term plan is what we're looking for, stability. You know,
Okay.
where do we want to be? And we all said, gosh, we
Not
thought
being
we'd be
wishy-washy.
reorganized by
Okay.
now. And
So and that helps me, but and I'm sorry I don't
No, that's-
have a full awareness of the context. So that makes sense. Kids, community, staff, understand the direction you're headed. And yeah, okay. And there's this stability, whatever that direction is now that gets decided. All right. Somebody else. Another group. What else came up? What do you want for kids?
upgraded facilities, fine arts center, improvements to our schools,
Okay.
make them just more updated, state of the art.
Any other groups have something that paralleled or was similar to that? That was, okay. Any additional words or phrases you want to use, or same kind of description?
That's basically the same, something conducive to learn and grow and build upon.
Great.
To have to keep the efficiencies going for both district, or the one district in at some point to grow opportunities, to not just can't have the opportunities we have now, which is great, and to grow those opportunities to enhance education for students.
Eagerness to achieve.
Okay. Kids' eagerness to achieve. You want your kids to be hungry learners and eager to achieve. Okay. What else? Anything else that hasn't come up so far that's really a kind of a burning idea in your mind? And what we want to do is keep coming back, so as we work our way through the other topics tonight, keep that out in front of us. We want kids prepared when they, no matter what work or additional schooling track they go on, they're ready. We want kids who, we want for our kids facilities that are a fine educational environment. We want stability for our kids and community and us, predictability, where we headed. Those kind of things, we want to keep coming back to those. And again, whatever it takes to achieve that. So that takes us into that second question about, so what's that mean for your leadership as two board teams and when you work together as one team? What's that mean for your leadership? What do you got to be like in order to reach the things and achieve the things you want for your kids and your community?
I kind of thought of it as like parenting. When you have two parents in the home, you have to be the united front to your children, and kind of like we're the united front to the community. You can't have the squabbling or, you know, and with the kids' needs focused in front of you, that should help you.
Helps that out?
Willingness to work together, I guess.
A board member Tuesday night was in a session who said, but that doesn't mean it's all just happy talk all the time. And I said,
Right,
absolutely not.
yeah.
It doesn't mean we all, at the expense of what's good for our kids and our communities, that we don't have hard conversations. And I said, absolutely right. All the more reason to have those conversations. And yet, as you have hard conversations, what do you do when and as and before you leave the room and in between meetings that's going to foster teamwork while you're having hard conversations? That might sound like a little bit of an oxymoron there, but that's a great challenge. You know that, preaching to the choir. How we have hard conversations and still continue to function as a group and a team that's moving forward and providing direction for where we're headed. How do we engage our community in that? How do we help? How do we listen to our community? And find that balance between exercising our leadership and being responsible to the community as well. And it takes both. Anything else in terms of what else came up as far as what you have to be like as a team?
We just need to be constantly moving forward. Not standing still or, reaching for the next goal or the next goal or.
Looking forward rather than the rearview mirror? Yeah.
You ain't growing, you're dying.
Say again, please, Jeff?
You ain't growing, you're dying.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty evident across the world, and the experts in the field say to move forward of effort. Yeah. Anything else?
Understanding and supportive.
All right. And asking those questions to clarify so you can unpack things, and then as you leave the room before you move forward, you're still committed to, we'll work our way through this stuff, figure out how to work our way through it. Other characteristics or traits, what you need to be like?
We need to be open-minded, communicate truthfully with one another, and adapt to our needs of the district.
All right, last call on that one. Okay, slide forward to page 40. You can stay where you are for right now, but in a little bit, we're gonna get up and move again. And a reminder, again, I'm probably overkill on this piece. This is not about, I'm not naive, this is not about, I come up and think we'll do 2 hours after talk tonight. We're grounding these first couple activities, and then we'll get to what are the roadblocks and possible ways through those. Now let's start with where you're headed and what kinds of things have helped you move forward in that journey and are going to continue to help you move forward in whatever direction you have. So looking at this first question on page 4, I'd like you to each individually think of 2 or 3 of the more powerful ways your partnership, your sharing in recent years has helped both districts provide for excellence in student learning. You've all said that's why you're here. That's your undergirding piece. So what are 2 or 3 ways your partnership and sharing have done that? People who like shorter questions, cut to the chase and just say, what have been 2 or 3 of the biggest benefits? And how do you know that? How do you know that? What do you see? What do you hear from the community? What do you see and hear from kids? What tells you those are benefits? Okay? Another minute or so? curiosity, how many of you over the last few years when you've had the sharing, how many of you have had kids or currently have kids that are in the school system? So virtually everybody. That's rare. Cool. That's rare. That's a polite way of saying you're younger for it than some of us. All right. What I want you to do is,
Sorry, bad.
I told you I had old-time humor. That might be one of those times. Right? You can let me know at the break, okay? I'll look for the key marks in my car. It's the white one out. Anyway.
You're at least 4 years older than I am.
And I'm older than all of you, so, all right.
3 years older than I am.
Here's what I need you to do. Battle Creek, Ida Grove, hook up with an Order Board, Arthur Board that you remember that you haven't talked with yet, and share, and there might be 2 or 3 people in it, okay?
Not yet.
All right? And share how you answered this one.
I gotta go with that.
2 or 3 benefits or ways help you move forward.
Mr. Mosher, how are you? Huh? Yeah. Hunky Dory. I'm gonna say that. Here, you also pick this one.
No, it's good. I got one right here.
This one.
They're gonna start the language arts today.
Activities, which we were sharing them.
They're not special ed.
That would be essentially
Just staggering my mind. See if we can hold that. That's where that raise the ball is. This was, I don't know how it comes. We were both, you all don't understand how close we were to financial trouble back then.
We knew we had bought it.
Okay. Then do this. Connect with somebody else you haven't talked to yet tonight from your own board team. And again, we may have a group or 2 that has
Joey, you're my chair.
Because I haven't come down there and said, hey, Carol,
How are you?
Yes.
How are you doing?
Mother Teresa told me you had to have a living room.
No, we're good.
I think
We had that years we filled up, we're expecting people to drop it like this, and we're
Right.
Do is here repeat comments, checkmate, tally marks, frequency. You need a laser? Connected smartphone. I was gonna say, just had you, just with your tablet. Yeah, do it. Think it on the chart reading. If that's not a big hassle, go ahead and get it captured, we can get it put up later, whatever, that's fine. Okay. Okay. Or we can use mine.
What's that?
How long does it take you to
What?
How long does it take you to get connected? 30 seconds. Okay. Yeah. Tell me when you're ready.
I get all kinds of bullshit.
Okay. It's good? All right. Okay, let's do this. I'm an official stenographer now. That's what it is. So, and I want to get a count on the ideas. I want us all be able to leave here with as much clarity as we can about the heavy hitter benefits, as well as there might be some unique things. Again, it's not all about happy talk, but part of what helps is to keep coming back to what do we got in front of us? How's this been beneficial? Because the dance is, as you move forward, how do you make future decisions, complex decisions, all those sort of things, and how do you work around the roadblocks without losing the benefits of the sharing and partnership you have? That's the focus of the lens. Make sense? That's the driving, the method to the madness here. So, why don't we start with you guys first? Give us one of your one of the benefits you guys talked about that maybe multiple of you have, or you found yourself all nodding yes.
I think both districts got their finances under control.
All right. Anybody else have that? I overheard you guys talking about that. Finance. So all four groups, finances under control. If I moved here next month, and you wouldn't want me to, what if I did? And I didn't know squat about either school district, and probably how hard that was. Could you just tell me in a couple, 2-3 sentences, when you say we got our finances in order, can you give me a sense? I might say, oh, that's nice, get in my car, but grab my attention. When you say you got your finances in order.
Before the overrate sharing, we were declining enrollment.
Yeah.
And as you decline in enrollment, everything you lose, you have to cut something. And pretty soon it makes it impossible to cut enough from the general fund to make it work.
Okay, somebody
And,
else? Yeah, see.
So anyway, cuts get to be common.
All right.
Those opportunities go away.
Somebody else tell me, what sticks in your memory when you say we were able to get our finances better in order? What else did that look like, in addition to what Paul said?
Sharing opportunities of staff and administrators.
So in some efficiencies maybe that come with that, or you might be able to offer some courses or more sections or whatever that you maybe weren't able to do on your own, that sort of thing, or as many? Okay, that helps. Let's go to another one. What's another benefit? How does this partnership help you achieve what you want for kids in the future here? What's it done for you? Your kids, your community.
More opportunities for our students.
All right? And did anybody else have that? More opportunities for kids? 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, all 4 groups.
Good.
Unpack that for a minute. Moving to your school districts is the greatest thing since sliced bread, so I've talked to my brother-in-law into moving up here too. What would you tell Neil if he moved in here? What are you gonna tell him when you say more opportunities for kids? What'd that look like? What'd it do for your kids? Make Neil happy he moved here.
Well, especially at the high school, more enrollment at the high school enables you to provide more course offerings, more opportunities, especially with extracurricular activities. Just the bigger high school, you're able to offer a better quality.
So more offerings for kids in academics and extracurriculars. The district I was in last night said, this ain't a pretty place to be when we gotta recruit kids so we have enough for softball team. They recognize they're in a problem, and you gotta bear with a quick story here I'm gonna tell you. My in-laws, my wife's parents, I love them almost as much as my own parents. They treated me well, and great folks. They lived in the same house in Des Moines, Beaverdale area for almost 40 years. And you know what? That house on 50th Street provided a quality living experience for them for most of those 40 years. It was a quality living experience. Roll ahead the clock. 2-3 years ago, they're in their mid-80s. The family, we did not have the hard conversations that we needed to, and to look at what point is the quality of their life living suffering because of the limitations of the match between the house and their needs at that point in the mid-80s. It's a 3-story house. It's a half flight of steps up. It's not right at ground level. They can't handle the snow blower or do the yard work themselves. My mother, I live in Ames, so I commute to Des Moines for work, but half the time I'm going north anyway to work with board teams. But a couple times a month, I just spend a night with them one night when I've been in western or southern Iowa, and just to hang out. So I would get there after a board meeting, they would go to bed at 10, usually. But the night I'm coming in from wherever, Malvern, Iowa, or Fort Madison at 10:30, they're up and we talked till midnight. It was fun. But it was clear, I'd see these little signs that this is not a good match. They're limited right now in the current arrangement. Here's how Dorothy would do the laundry. She'd have like 3 shirts under her arm, and she'd sit on her rear end and go down 1 step at a time. Probably took her 10 minutes. Had a book down there, stayed the 40 minutes while it ran through the wash cycle and then in the dryer, and then somehow got her 3 shirts under her arm, and probably 30 minutes later figured her way up the steps. And most of the rest of the family didn't see that. But the impact or quality of life was slipping before they ever had to face the facility or the financial situation. Make sense? But we weren't having those conversations until Ed had a couple falls, banged his head on a big beard, didn't look good, until his wife, 2-3 weeks later, Dorothy, fell, didn't injure herself, was on the carpet almost 30 hours, soiled her clothing, nobody knew it. And then it was like, what? Oops, it's impacting their life, time to look at making some adjustments. So when you talk about opportunities for kids and what you benefit from, if there are more opportunities, you have enough kids for athletic teams, camaraderie, all those things that can happen. You want to keep reminding yourself, why did we do this? What are our kids getting from this? How's the quality of their educational experience, educational excellence, enhanced by what we've been able to do together that wouldn't be the same, necessarily wouldn't play out the same apart. No, I'm not here to try to backdoor say to you, you should do A, B, or C. I'm not going to do that. It'd be a dumb thing to do. But it's worth remembering what has made a difference for your kids. And how do we maintain those pieces while we work through difficult issues, challenging things. So, something different. What else? Benefits. One of your groups over here. Anything besides the more course offerings, the finances, anything else?
I had down that the students have been exposed to other teachers, other students, the different school districts, opportunities that they might not have been exposed to otherwise.
Did anybody else have one that paralleled that? Any one group on that one?
The thing that kind of stands out to me
Please.
between both districts is each district has things that maybe are bigger priorities, are things they excel at. And by us sharing, I mean, I look at my kids. I had one that graduated BCIG, I had one that graduated as part of the sharing. And I look at the two of them and how it was before and how it was when we were sharing. And the things that OA brought to the table and the things that BCIG brought to the OA table. You know, just different areas, you know, athletics, fine arts, you know, speech, music, just different things.
Insights, way of doing business, ideas, all those sort of things, sure. All right, another one. Now I'm working on my brother Joel, who has 2 kids in school yet. I'm trying to talk my brother Joel into moving up here. What would I tell him is on the plate that's a benefit for kids the last 4 or 5 years? Not, that wouldn't have been here if I'd have been working on Joel and move up here 10 years ago. What's my nephew Luke, what's my niece Courtney going to experience here now that they wouldn't, that's a benefit for them that wasn't here maybe 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, this would go along with the finances, but having the efficiencies with the sharing and your finances being in better shape than your facilities, hopefully you can keep improving those and keep them up to par.
So another benefit, you hit those efficiencies so then you can start using your resources on things that might be in your, we'd really like to have our bucket list. It's probably more necessity than a bucket list, but you can start chipping away at some things.
I didn't write this, but what Dave might get is we've advanced far technology-wise with our one-to-one that would not have been here had you been here
10 years ago or 4 or 5?
before we shared it before.
Okay, so
We've gone one-to-one down to 4th grade. So
okay, cool. Was anybody else thinking about technology?
we had it down.
Okay, you did. So at least a couple, three groups at least. All right. Again, I don't want to spend the rest of the night here, but maybe one more pass. Anything else that has been a benefit or has helped you move forward on what you want for kids because of your sharing? Been able to capitalize on that and make more of it, maximize opportunities for kids in your communities by sharing.
This isn't what it's all about, but the student athletics have excelled.
So unpack that a little bit for me. Luke, my nephew, loves basketball, running, and football. So what am I going to tell Luke about your districts now that I'll tell my brother Joel that you wouldn't see maybe 10 years ago?
Well, we can offer now freshmen and JV and varsity, gives you more playing time, more opportunity to get experience instead of being thrown in at varsity level when you're freshman.
When Luke's in 9th grade this year, if he'd come here 8 years ago, what his likelihood of he'd have been on a varsity football team maybe?
Right.
And the first time a 15-year-old gets whacked up beside the head a couple of times, or gets his legs taken out from under him, or a 14, 15-year-old girl runs cross country and gets waxed by juniors or seniors, what's the likelihood they're going to stick with that and say, boy, this is fun, right? Not too good, is it?
I think along with that, together we are now a real solid 2A district size, which we think is just a real nice opportunity. Kids get to play, be a part of almost every team and activity that they would like to be involved in at our size of the district, while still being able to offer a variety of things.
And not having their arms twisted to go out, so they have to.
Yeah, not
Right.
begging
So we don't have that
students,
problem.
I
yeah.
can go out and compete with other 15 and 16-year-olds, not 18-year-olds, always. Plus, I'm a really good runner, really good basketball player, good whatever. All right. Okay, last call on this one in terms of benefits, or how has your partnership with sharing helped posture you to push forward on excellence for kids. Anything else? Not looking for anything particular, just particular. Just. Okay. They're up on the screen for a reason right now, because again, I said a little bit ago, the challenge is asking ourselves, how do we work through challenging situations? How do we make future decisions and minimize or not lose major ground on the headway we made? You know, how do we work that? How do we make that? How do we make that happen? What do we do? So, I think we ought to do this. Let's take about a 3-4 minute break, run to the bathroom, stretch a minute. When you come back, go to page 5, and here's the quick setup, so you can start writing. What are the key roadblocks to maximizing your benefits? And the right-hand column, what are your initial ways for workarounds? Let me give a couple examples. 5-6 years ago, I way underestimated in my work with board teams, way underestimated the things that were roadblocks. Sometimes I thought they were, from my perspective, the huge things. Sometimes they are. A lot of times the roadblocks aren't always just the huge things. They're things like this. The two districts will share, A and B. A has the middle school, B has the high school. And lo and behold, part of this, it's all, and really from my perspective, it's like a grieving experience. A, 3/4 of the community don't even have kids in school. But things like this are issues for them. They're roadblocks to maximizing the partnership. Community members saying, geez, we have a homecoming parade? We have the ball games over here? I got to drive 16 miles for the ball games? Yada, yada. And then you get the reverse. Wow, our elementary kids are here, and then they like disappear for 3 years, and they come back 6 inches taller. And we don't see those middle school activities like we like. The kids just kind of disappear, you know, and you can go on and build your list. Sometimes those, they're the only roadblocks. And transportation, I gotta go pick up my kid, and that building's farther away than what it used to be. And so as you identify your roadblocks, it might be things like that. It might be really huge, big things that are way more complex than that. But I encourage you and urge you to think about what are ways around those roadblocks. A district I'm thinking of, a session like this started their conversation around, do all the senior high athletic events or concerts need to stay in the building where the senior high is? It might. But they had some conversations and said, or is there a way with our seniors or parents in the other community to be able to support them so they feel like a part of our high school when there's a concert, when there's a science fair, when there's a whatever. Does that make sense? It's the thinking outside the box, ways to work around what are roadblocks and can at times grow into a bigger thing than maybe what the original hurdle is. Or van service or shuttle buses or whatever it might look like. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm sharing from other districts some stories about as you think about those roadblocks, push yourselves on initial ideas to work around those. Many board teams are pleasantly surprised. You're smart people. And what you can come up with is ways to work around the roadblocks without necessarily giving up on, losing, sacrificing the benefits that you've gained so far through your partnership. Fair enough? So take your break. We'll see you back here maybe 3-4 minutes after 8, and then start working on this sheet. Would you please? And once you do some individual reflection, we'll break into new, a little bit larger discussion. All right, back to the drawing board.
See, that's
That's all
Thanks for the conversation the first hour. I'm counting on, relying on you. If you feel like we're walked down somewhere or whatever, can move faster, or you need to slow down, or unpack something, and you gotta just, it's your meeting. So you need to say, whoa, Harry, and push some so we can make adjustments. So here's my quick question for you. Are there any places in, I can't know, I come into, I mean, Brian and Tracy appreciated the conversation with them. We didn't go into all kinds of details. It was kind of big picture. What do we focus on? So I always come into a board team or board teams not knowing where I may unintentionally step in it or aggravate things or any of that kind of stuff. So I'd ask you, have I stepped in it anywhere so far? And if so, where? Or are there places you're saying, I wish you could push along a little more on that thing, whatever it might be? Any thoughts?
So you covered it pretty well.
All right. This piece will get a little harder. That's by design, so bear with me. Everybody, a little harder, but all right. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. When I was going to look this up at a break and forgot it. The vice presidents are Jill and Joy. Okay. So after you have a few minutes to work on this roadblocks and ways to work around them individually, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Tracy and Brian in a group and Jill and Joey in another group, and then we're going to split the rest of you up. A couple of OAA board members in each group and 2 or 3, if I can be 3 in one, from BCIG. Got to get those initials down here, right? Did I get that right? Yeah. I worked a lot a few years ago with BCLUW in central Iowa, and I'm driving up here today going, you're going to say BCLUW area, you know it's going to come out wrong, so forgive me if that happens. So, a little bit of individual writing time. When it looks like you're making pretty good headway, I'm going to say, okay, a couple of you from OA, join these guys, a couple of you join these guys, and 2 or 3 from BCIG join them, and you're going to have 2 smaller group conversations around roadblocks and ways to work around them, okay? We'll do a little bit of individual reflection to get your juices flowing and the ideas moving forward here.
I was just watching.
Where are you guys
Well,
Oh, okay, great. Gotta say names.
Scott Curry.
Okay. All right. I got to mention Miss Christine, 10 years. Miss Christine.
Yeah.
I met her last week. I remember she.
Yep.
Here's a packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, say names. Clarence.
Scott Curry. I mean, it's been, I wouldn't say uneventful, but it's working.
are you far enough along where it's okay to move to conversation time? Okay, then Joey and Jill, if you connect over on this side, and then again, let's have a couple of board members from each district join with both groups. And board presidents and vice presidents, would you just help keep folks on track, sharing what you see in roadblocks and potential ways around that? Who's here for full day now?
You can't just sit over there by yourself. We're having a conversation.
We gotta go over here.
Yep, two groups.
So you just want the total of 2 groups?
Total of 2 groups, so that'd be perfect.
I feel like if we
Yeah,
get
mixed
in the
group,
center.
mixed group.
Yeah, so
You good? Got it.
Here.
and we can move the tables and chairs.
Okay. Have at her in terms of your ideas, and if you want to.
They can just move, you can move the chairs into a circle.
Yeah, okay,
If you want to move the computer lab, you can move your chairs into a circle there and go.
fine.
Or one group can, or you can
All right,
sit here.
good. Great.
There's chairs in there, just grab one computer.
Okay, that makes it kind of a competitive element. All right, go ahead. Thanks. Might be easier to talk that way.
For roadblocks, to our roadblocks to maximize the benefits of our partnership. Provide the board with current proration and evaluation. How do we get around that? Examine it, see if it can be tweaked. Maybe it can't be, maybe it can be. But you guys know, no matter what grades we put in what buildings, what towns where, some people don't like it this way, some people want it that way. That's what I hear as one of their biggest roadblock to maximizing our partnership.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
What we have, and we have, we get to hear the most about is community people, they get upset and then lock their minds up to the future because of any hiccup in the road and then they maximize on that by sending propaganda out about things they don't know about. And it's usually a community that don't have any students in school anymore, and they're in kind of a denial, basically, because they didn't see, the declining enrollment happen. They pictured as it was when their kids were there, and it was fine. Well, it changed after that, And
So Paul, is that maybe not having enough or accurate information and understanding?
I don't know how you pass that out, because
Nobody, is that part of the issue? I want to ask.
I don't think so.
I don't
I could
think
be
so.
wrong, Paul.
I don't think
From
so.
our district as well.
Is
People
it more
just-
nostalgia or?
more nostalgia
I think so.
and
You can probably more blinders than anything. It's like, this was, because, I got hammered again today on the auditorium. This was the greatest auditorium we had ever had. Wait a minute. It was, 60 years old?
90.
And it's like, wait a minute, it's not that good anymore, but when you walk around, I remember when this was built, and that's what people remember.
So can I push with something that's probably jump to a solution? Does it tend to be folks who no longer have kids in school?
yeah.
Yeah.
Some.
They may have some grandkids and
Grandkids.
stuff like that.
How likely are that, so I'm gonna push a little further, how likely have they ever come, other than the grandkid, have they ever come to another event, whether it's a concert, a science fair, debate club, whatever, a play, and seen the auditorium packed and felt that energy behind how, or whatever you use for that now versus the idea that's in their head from 40 years ago?
Usually not.
So what I'm going to nag on some is ask yourselves, holy smokes, what could we do to engage them? I find when people see kids in action, learning together, kids that came formerly, had 2 different mascots, and now, to be honest, the kids adapt faster than anybody else. It's the adults that struggle with what I see. So my point is helping them see firsthand kids working together, a play, whether it's in the gym, an auditorium, wherever it is, a science fair, any of those things that help break down, sorry, Jeff, maybe you're getting hammered, the myth of the good old days, whatever that means. So, shut up.
I don't hear that as often, and maybe it's just me, but I'm sure there are still people in both districts that, you know, that still hear them say, well, I just wanted to be Ibro, or I wish I could still be away, or, you know, we can wish, but the reality is what it is, and I think Gary's right, how do we encourage people to look past the nostalgia of our reality is we do need to be together with someone, and not need to, we would like to.
But once they get peeved about something, they kind of pass it on to generation to generation. Some of them do, you know, it's kind of hard to break that. Those are the people that you need for support, you know, if you're going to organize or something.
Well, they're voters, you know.
Absolutely.
They're constituents, they're the taxpayers. And those are the ones that call. And they call. Those are the ones that always call. And saying, hey, this ain't right. You need to attend more often and find out if it is right or wrong.
Well, I think we just lose sight for today's students in our district of what, you know, what do they need to become educated. We can't look back. I mean, we have to look forward. But it's hard. I mean, having said that, it's not, you know, it's the pride of our small communities and small schools that keeps us alive, and the mascot or the colors or the whatever, you know, people, that's important.
And I think,
It's just a-
I mean, I think there's multiple levels of, what do I want to say, roadblocks.
Acceptance. Mhm.
You know, I just think that they're, from the very beginning, whether it was a lack of communication, whether it was, I don't know.
We still have people, you know, you still have Trojans over there. You know, they're still Battle Creek bombers. Those people aren't going away. They just do not go away.
I'm going to ask again on this one. Do they, what's it take, that's a better answer. What's it take, again, to get them to a ball game or a play or something, so they see kids from, you can't tell which team they're from, with a smile on their face, running their rear end off, whether they win or lose a game. Or what's it take, and I don't know what it looks like, but that they see a play, or they walk through the gym or the cafeteria and see the science fair or the debate club and go, holy smokes. I mean, you walk them through, they talk with kids and say, guess what? 30 of those kids in there are from OA, and 42 of them are from OABCIG. Could you tell the difference? Other than you can do somebody? Again, thinking about these aren't my ideas. I beg, borrow, and steal from other districts that are at the same spot you are. Trying to figure out what do we have to do to build, what might we do to build the community's awareness, particularly those who don't have kids in school, so that we're myth busting is really what we're doing. Adding some accuracy to those rooms. Now that's a lot of work, and some people might still say, by golly, I was a bomber, my mother was a bomber, I'll always be a bomber. But what about for some of those who go, oh, I'm still a bomber, but what's your mascot now?
Well, ours has changed so many times over the
Okay,
years. I think
what's it
that's
today?
part of it.
Today it's a
The
Falcons. The Falcons, those kids who would see themselves as Falcons, they feel as strongly about being a Falcon as I did being a bomber. I explained, now we might get through a lot. What would that take? What would that look like? You know?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because
A lot of the
you are not going to change that.
They don't travel 12 miles to go anywhere. They'd like to see something in our community too. We don't have any.
Which could, that may be part of the solution. Here's another one too. Sharing from another district, we said, you know what? We're gonna target 3-4 times a year an event. It's gonna be a big deal. Superintendent or president, principal, I don't know who it is gonna, they know where seniors meet. And they're gonna connect and say, we got a school bus set up, and you get a free hot dog and a bag of popcorn and pop. And here's the 4 nights we're offering something, and it's a social event to get seniors or voting community members who don't have kids in school to come to the other community and see that, boy, those are our kids.
I think we would offer free admission to anything.
Any of that
For-
stuff.
to-
Yeah.
We do it now.
Seniors get it now.
Yeah, seniors get all
But
that.
for this district, they said, let's get a shuttle bus, let's try that. And you might only get, or a van, and you might only get 3 people, but it's 3 less who've seen firsthand what's happening. And 1 or 2 might still be, I'm always a bomber, I'll always be a bomber. They saw some converts happen. But they have to scratch your head and go, holy smokes, we were worried about shuttle buses for kids or parents for activities. Never dreamed we might want to try something with the non-parents. But they hit something that struck a chord there. They started targeting seniors for reading buddies in the school, and then grow that into folks seeing, look how our kids are using technology, isn't it amazing? Any little way to market and build the understanding of the community about school doesn't look for kids like it used to. Those sort of ideas, okay? Now, I'm not proposing every game you have a shuttle bus going somewhere, but you might be surprised when you find out by some occasional strategic things. Just to try 2 or 3.
And another thing, we need a lot of give and take here, but it can't all be one-sided.
Right.
you know.
Look at it working both ways.
And that's some of the problem we've had.
Sure, what about a shuttle bus from here that haul interested citizens down to see a junior high track meet or band concert, and there's a chili supper that was free for them, those sort of things? Make it work both ways.
Or like when we've had that, they have, I mean, there's been good attendance, you know, wrestling meets or whatever we've had. You know, people that don't go, they wouldn't, otherwise wouldn't go.
But the key people that send the most propaganda that really need to go,
Yeah.
They wouldn't go anyway. Right, a lot of ones aren't attending.
But I think along with this roadblock is, we're all in the same boat. Our small towns, we're struggling to maintain our population, not just in our schools, but in our communities. We're all losing businesses, and so we're all trying to hold on to, every last little thing we have and retain our identity. We're all trying to do the same thing. And and I have respect for the people who, care about their communities so very much that they, just, it's an urgency. But how do we change people's minds? I think we really just have to focus on what is best educationally for our district. Some of that will always be what it is, but at the end of the day, we know for our school districts to survive, here are our options. Looking long-term, what is the best for our districts? When can we get reorganized? We have 3 facilities in our districts, and, our goal is to keep them all full for a very long time. And might that change over the years? It probably will, more than, a couple times, and who knows how it'll look. But how do we just get there to have the long-term sustainability if we want to, be strong for a very long time? I just feel like we're so close. But there are roadblocks. There really are. The support in the community is, it varies. And after Holgate cheering for 5 years, I think we all know it's a great thing. And we don't like to just, to make it official tomorrow, but I don't know if I don't have the answers for how to get there yet.
But every little thing, it just sends a shock through the community, and then you go backwards again as far as supporting, anything. And then, what really gets bad is those propaganda things infects people that were
Neutral or in
okay,
favor of something?
in favor or neutral, and then they lose everything again.
So my urging that you think about is, how do we offset so that when information is out there, it's not all one-sided, perpetuated by folks who have concerns? What do we do that provides accurate information that counters, that brings some balance? Another example, making this up, but I saw a lot of head nodding around this one. So if if you got a newspaper article or, and newspaper articles or something on your website's not the catch-all answer, you know that. But are we being, is there room to be more intentional or deliberate around statements like, you know, because of our sharing, more efficiency and resources, which gave us money to be able to move this technology in and get it farther down grade levels than we would have been able to do without this, reminding people of some of these sort of things. How, and it'll feel like a broken record to you. And I don't mean you as individual board members, but as a voice in the district. Are there places to capitalize on that? Sorry, Jill, and I'll say this to Tracy and Brian. There may be opportunities in pairs, board presidents or vice presidents, to go seek out, not rules, but a local, the Chamber of Commerce, or a local community group, a church group, and go to them with some pieces of information that help build awareness and understanding how we benefited and how this has worked in our kids' favor, to help them understand that. If they aren't hearing it from folks in the know, right, where are they getting their information from?
They're not, because we have a 21st century mentality, putting the information out there, and a 19th century recipients.
So how can you reach them then? There's a challenge. We're on the roadblock. How do you reach the last century recipients? And my guess is it's probably somehow, way, shape, or form, face-to-face.
You're going to have to put it in the newspaper. We have a blog on our website all the time. But you have to want to be able to go to that blog and pull it up. Well, 19th century people aren't going to go there and do that. So, and at that point, now that information's not available to them. So whatever Matilda told them is, by God, and she knows, you know, because, you know, she was over at Martha's. And
so while I wander over and check on the other group, take Jeff's idea and I challenge you. How do you go to them and reach them? Not a complete list, not saying, no, Pat, can you now spend another 20 hours a month on schoolboard work? I'm not saying that. But if you look at it and say, are there a couple things during the year, a couple things we might try as a board, or that we support Nick and staff leaders in doing to, again, push it, meet them where they are. If they're not reading the blogs, if they're not coming to events, then the mental set is, how do we connect with them? How do we reach out to them? How do we bring them into it? Whether that's a shuttle, an event.
Because we don't put good news in the newspaper, we always put bad news in the newspaper.
All right, so then how do you get some good news to them? What are your avenues? I'll be back in a minute. You guys
Somebody has to tell me that.
You guys chew on that.
What do they remember about? What do they remember out of the newspaper?
After the organization, I went out to church groups several times and explained everything, how things work. And you know, but key people is really get the information to them.
And I'm sure, Paul, that that's all well received when you go do that too. You know, and it's like, hey, that's great. Now we know. But again, if somebody does not take that initiative to go do that, then that information doesn't get out. You know, now bad news spreads fast. Good news takes a long
Well,
time.
I think when Nick came a couple of years ago, he had a really good experience talking to individuals in all of our communities that really were opposed to reorganization. And I think a fresh perspective maybe just provided people with a different outlook. So sometimes it is just a different person, same message, perhaps, a little bit of time too. You know, after 5 years, all of the great things with whole grade sharing, I mean, I don't hear anyone saying, we don't want to do this. We're not going down the right road. We all know this is the best thing, the right thing for us. But yeah, change will come. Do we want to be committed in this shared district together? Because if not, you know, nobody has a really good option, in my opinion. And I just don't even hear that as an option from our district.
I will still go back. We are better together than we are apart. And that's, look at the list and you can see that, so.
Well, if you saw firsthand where we were when we started, there's no doubt about it. You know,
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
3 of us that went through that track, firsthand, up front and personal. The change around was just enormous, unbelievable.
You know, some of the positives that we talked about has grown. You know, we think about whole grade sharing, we think about 6 through 12, the impact it's had on our kids. Because everything talked about extracurricular, we talked about course offerings and things like that. The classic example would be if we did whole grade share and get the efficiencies that we get out of sharing superintendent, sharing business manager, sharing all these things, it basically operates one district. We have 2 school boards, 2 budgets, but we basically operates one district. When we have 25 kids in first grade like we do this year, in a way, we don't have 2 sections. We have 1 section because we can't afford to have 2. At BCIG, when we have 3 sections of first grade with 52 kids, we don't have 3 sections of 17. We have 2 sections of 26. And so the benefits trickle down into all of them. And I think sometimes that is something that is often forgotten. People only look at the high school, they only look at the middle school and what impact whole grade sharing has had on those 2, which I think has been positive. But the amount of opportunities that is created for kids K-12 because of the financial position we've been able to put ourselves in. And a lot of that came from the continued efficiencies that the boards had to make last year. And those were really hard decisions too, but put us in a good spot. But, you know, I think somebody in there said roadblock, and people talk about pulling things apart. It's not just about pulling 2 school districts apart. I mean, all of these kids, all the way through from K to, you know, from 4-year-old on up, they do mat rats together, they do soccer together, they do, you know, basketball, baseball, golf lessons, doesn't matter what it is. The impact that has on communities is far more great. I mean, the logistical part of pulling 2 districts apart can be done, sure, but these communities are so interwoven, whether we like it or not, we're about as interwoven as you come. The number of people in a way that work in Ida Grove and vice versa and everything else. You know, I think that sometimes the general public doesn't always look at that perspective. It's not just about 2 districts, it really is about 4 communities that have become so interwoven that it'd be hard to pull that apart.
It's hard to tell them apart.
And where does that go from there? You know, it's a mess. But
I see no reason to pull apart. I still see reasons to go forward, because I think we can still get better. You know, I think we can still get kids together at a younger age, which we all know that's better because that's less transition time. That's more time that they get to spend together. Those are the things that we need to work on. And right now, you know, we're not talking about that.
But that's the detractors, you know, that's kind of the rollbacks. That's what we hear in the communities of, oh, let's look at some other options. Let's, you know, look at these things or those things. And oh, you know, we can just do this. And I think, you know, it's a matter of looking at the whole picture. Step back and say, okay, it's not just about where does our 7th grade go to school or where does our 2nd grade go to school. It's 12th grade. It is a much deeper impact.
Well, and think of how long-term that is, if we do that. You know, okay, you know, if you have this plan and you do it, you know, first of all, it's gonna take us years to get there. Second of all, it has to carry us for how many years? Because the resources that these communities have are not there to be making changes. It's like, well, this wasn't working, and we gotta change this in 5 years.
Right.
Here's a perfectly good example, isn't it? We're sitting in a good example right now of what short-sightedness does. You know, and I don't think we want to go down that road again. And I think the only way to do that is, you know, we got to have these conversations like, you know, here's what we need to do to become more efficient. Here's what we need to do for education. First and foremost, we all have to remember we are in this for our #1 job is education. It's not activities, it's not anything else. It's all about education. We have to do the best thing that we can for our kids.
What are the biggest detractors you guys have come up with? television in your ears anymore.
But I was just talking about, the community impact of the folks that don't have students in school anymore. They pick up on any little thing, a little hiccup or anything, and they run with it. And it pulls the support apart away from the kids, And to support the kids, I mean, you know as well as anybody that the people that really run with that stuff don't really come and check out what's really going on inside the school. And those are the support people you need to back things to move forward, And every time that happens, it makes such a backwards, not really backwards as far as opportunity-wise, it just pulls the support backwards.
How do you feel? That's good. Kind of the workaround stuff is, I think of it as, think if you had to have your marriage on television. I mean, really, that's essentially what we are. Two districts. I know the marriage analogies get old after a while, but nobody has a perfect marriage. They don't eventually argue with their spouse or they don't agree. And to the outside world, everybody thinks, everything goes great, but, the problem is if we don't necessarily agree, everybody thinks there's trouble to the point of separation. That's not the case. And I think, I think about arguments I've had, I think some people might say, oh my gosh, you guys are going to be getting a divorce or something. Well, no, it's just an argument. We move past it, It's kind of like the same thing with two boards. You hit a point where you have an argument and you're still working through it, but immediately, fringe is, they're on the way to separate, because they didn't have the option to have those conversations, somewhat behind closed doors. And that's just the life we live because we're very public, obviously, with the open meetings, things like that. I think that, you can't be on your best behavior all the time. I mean, you can't, and it's impossible. And there's no way all 12 board members are going to agree on something every time. I mean, a lot of times we do. But how do we keep those times when we don't necessarily agree or we need to have, like Carrie's tough conversations, from becoming the focus of thinking that this relationship is going south, because it hasn't gone south. I mean, it is a very strong
Well,
relationship.
I don't know where that came from. I mean,
Yeah.
I was shocked to hear that.
Yeah.
I have not heard that in our district, honestly. One thing, Nick, when I think of roadblocks, I wish we would have, and maybe we did and I'm not aware of it, but 3 years ago when we did our reorganization vote and it failed in both districts, I wish we would have had a survey or feedback officially on, if you didn't support it, why? Just really what areas of the plan did you not support? What is it? I still ask that question. I mean, you get lots of feedback, but I wish we would have, surveyed our districts on why didn't you support it? But one roadblock that.
Still do that.
True, yep. But one roadblock that, and I shouldn't say roadblock, just I think in both districts, because our district is so wide from the east to west, it tends to be the mileage. It's the distance between the end towns and traveling for students on buses and for parents to activities. And to me, that's probably our biggest roadblock. And then, just getting people to
It's
and
kids
from.
behind the wheel, it's parents behind the wheel, it's kids on the
Absolutely.
bus.
What's the biggest roadblock? I'm curious, because they're landing on theirs.
Distance.
Okay, distance,
In activities in buildings.
and that's what they just said, the
Bingo.
activities thing.
Yep.
And one other disclaimer, please, shame on me if I gave you the impression this is what you all have to tackle single-handedly as a board. Heavens no. What I'm after is getting your input as representatives of the community and leaders to help narrow where might we get the most bang for the buck? Where are the roadblocks, like you just did? These are a couple areas, and then say, okay, now our district, Nick, teaching staff, us, if we lock arms, we can figure out a couple things that might be entry points to move forward on this. But I'm not saying you as, Joey and Pat, get ready to host a chili supper next month. That's not what I'm saying. You might be dying to, that's all I'm saying. The initial ideas were to just get the ideas cooking. And then, and it might mean that Nick might say, yeah, we can do this with the shuttle bus, or we can do a chili supper, we can do this sort of thing, that sort of thing. But we're gonna have to budget a little bit of resources for it. So that you're prepared for that. And we gotta figure out how to use some miscellaneous income or activity support funding or something to make that.
Well, I mean, and it could be things like a trade-off. There could be some high school activities in OA, some middle school activities at BCIG, so that all parents, depending on the grade level, aren't having to drive to home events all the time. I mean, those are things that we can look at if that's a big detractor for research.
So you ready? Can you summarize a couple big ideas when they come back in? I'll give you a minute or two to kind of land on what are you thinking? I'll be back.
What other ideas?
What are the roadblocks you guys staring down?
I just had that I feel there's multiple levels of roadblocks that have stemmed from the very beginning. You know, from open communication between administration and community.
Sorry, from the very beginning.
I know
of
it's
what? I'm sorry,
from the whole grade
sharing.
sharing.
Okay.
And I know it's petty, but there's still people hooked on the colors. Do we need to scrap the colors? Do we need to scrap the mascot? Do we need to start over there? You know?
If that's a
I don't know.
roadblock, I mean, those are things that we can talk about, we can tackle, you know, and look at.
I just think that there's multiple levels of roadblocks within the communities.
What else do you think?
Multiple, you know. Again, the distance across the district.
That's not gonna change, no matter, you know, that's.
Right, but the location of activities could change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be, there could be
I
more
mean-
middle school activities, I don't know, maybe some more high school activities in Oakland. I mean, there could be trade-offs, you know, both ways, so that people don't, you know, and I'm not saying that's the answer, I'm just saying, you know, throwing things off the wall versus an all or nothing type of thing.
I told someone the other day, for probably close to 10 years, I've been coming to these meetings, CAC, and before whole grade sharing, and we're having the same conversations today that we had 10 years ago.
It's great, isn't it?
And I know that it's disheartening a bit, but I see it also as, that's a reality. I mean, it's
Exactly,
not.
that,
it is,
Jill,
that's a
it's reality, you know, and reality
it's not
will
that
force
easy.
you to make changes that people are not gonna be happy with. And it's as long as we make the proper changes that are the best for our facilities, kids, we've done our job. You know, because that's what we're here to do. And
It
the
is
reality
like
of
this.
it is
Yeah.
we are a small school and we're gonna continue to decline. And if we do not get ourselves positioned lockstep to be ready, you know, when we have another, and it's coming, when we lose another bunch of kids, then we're gonna be in trouble. You know, then we're gonna be scrambling. And I don't think we wanna be scrambling, because we do not have the resources to be scrambling. Look what happened the last time we had to scramble, when we had that across-the-board cut from the state. You remember that, Paul? That 10% just about killed us, didn't it?
Well, that's why we didn't have any cash reserve.
You know?
Now, with the efficiencies we've had, we've been able to take care of it.
And I think we need to make the best of those cash reserves right now.
But, so they said, what do we do for money? They said, use your cash reserves. I think, yeah, right. We've been building, and we've got the opportunity.
Well, we
to
weren't
build.
one of those communities that had a cash reserve.
What
because-
is that? You know, but now we've gotten there, but.
So the
you know,
big,
it's
the big
still-
detractor is activities and statistics. I mean, probably some of the biggest detractors, because it's really not a kid issue, that's for the most part, the kids come together pretty well. And, you know, the colors is like a secondary thing, which probably festers from activities and things along those lines. And at least I heard similar things over there when I was over there, that, okay, so if these are our issues, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And, you know, what are some of the things that, what are some of the things that we can do to move forward? It's like Phil said, so 10 years from now, people are saying, you know, the thing that always drives me nuts is we always get the woulda, shoulda, couldas. You know, back when they were, OA and BCIG were coming together, if BCIG would only have looked at this district, or OA would only have looked at this district, but, you know, the administration was short-sighted, or the school boards were short-sighted. And the thing is, it's kind of like, can't unring that bell. So now what do we do?
But we did look those ways.
Well, I'm not looking for an explanation, but I'm just saying, you know, the thing is what we need to do is we need to look at, okay, where are we at now? How do we make it better? Because, as we've had some situations we've had to deal with over the last 2 years, I mean, everybody can point fingers, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We gotta fix them. I think it's kind of like the budget situation we got into last year, but how did we get here? Who cares? And we're in it, we gotta fix it. And so, I understand we need to know the context, but,
I think if we're all willing to examine all options, I come back to that a lot, that I do think one of our fears in both of our districts is just the current whole grade sharing configuration and what grades are in what buildings. And if we truly are willing to just, you know, throw it out, look at all options for the long term and say what is best. Maybe the way we have it today is best. Maybe it's not. What, you know,
maybe it's grade alike buildings.
Honestly, and I mean all options, because for me, that is what I hear, that, you know, people just aren't, they're not totally sold on the whole grade sharing arrangement, and that's why they didn't support it. So what, can we tweak it to get support, or is this the best we can do? Is there a better way? I just think if the time is probably right to just look at it, as our district really is looking to ask our public for a, you know, a large bond issue to improve our facilities. The feedback we're getting is, please overturn every stone. Please look at all pieces of the puzzle now, because this is a long-term plan, and I think our public is kind of tired of every 2 or 3 years we close a building, you know, move grades. I think they're ready for some stability, a long-term vision.
I would say at least same in a way when you guys say that people just want to know that this is
Exactly, we
kind
don't
of.
want to know the same thing.
Everybody wants to know
We're
the
all
same.
trying to hang on to everything that we currently have, and
We've never had that serious
And
dialogue.
then comes the tricky part, then
And
comes
we
the
need
tricky
to.
part of doing something that both communities, all the communities agree on.
You bring them back in.
exactly.
And sometimes, when we're gonna make choices that are not gonna be, or make the community the happiest.
Yeah, let's
But
talk,
they're gonna be
and
the right
ask them to
decisions.
repeat big ideas.
Because we're here all the time. You know? And those decisions are gonna get made. You can stop it.
They were laughing and having fun.
They were made, it was at my expense.
Birthday.
I think I got a little flamboyant with the bomber language. A couple of them admitted they were bombers and
Oh,
stuff.
Boy, the memories just got flown.
Throwback Thursday.
My kids would wear my stuff.
This work session time might work for you, but I have an idea that 2 days before I'm gonna be talking to me again, so we'll see. So, okay. Now, again, I'm not naive. The kinds of things you're talking about aren't gonna happen in one day, and they're not gonna address everything. But if you don't counter what people, in an absence of information, people make stuff up. Or they perpetuate somebody else's myth. It just happens. Happens to most of us. We don't have information, we kind of fill in the blanks ourselves. That can happen. I do it. Maybe you don't do it in Battle Creek, kind of Grover, or Arthur, but I do it names sometimes. All right, so each group, let's share out what you see as potential roadblocks, and I chose that language very carefully because you can work around roadblocks. Right? So it was thoughtful that way on purpose. You maybe think so, but I did. So, what do you have? Let's hear from each group. Key things to keep in mind here that may be probably are worth investing some energy in to help you move forward, so you don't lose these things, what you've gained. You still are on target with that, while you also figure out what else do we need to do. So,
Personal community feel.
talk a little more about that. What do you mean by that? They didn't have the advantage of the discussion you guys had.
Just that sometimes it's more about the feelings than what's best for our kids and the community feelings that they're being left out, like we discussed, the nursing homes missing the kids, or the fire department's not getting to do fire prevention, things like that. Those are
Brian-
things that they miss.
Brian mentioned you've got 4 communities and you have buildings in how many of them? 2. So what about the other 2 communities? And that feeling of connectedness, disconnectedness, did either of those other communities ever have buildings in them? Okay, whether it was, if being a bomber is near and dear to somebody from 30, 40 years ago, the idea, yeah, I don't know, I just latched onto it. Somebody said a bomber.
That'll be quoted in the paper.
Okay. Here we go, okay. You're gonna really hurt my ability here to work with this group, so please choose carefully. I know you write what you're gonna write, but what's a former mascot from Orville Arthur? The Trojan, okay, so if you do put bomber in, put in Trojans too, because serious.
Just while we're having discussion. Oh, you don't know?
I wasn't even here. I was a Bristol Golden Bear.
It's always been Owen as long as I know.
So restate your overall thing again, one more time. It's about,
Community and personal feelings.
all right,
One of the points we want to get across, we want to make sure that the school district is making more of an effort to get involved with each and every community. We said that, do you see the school at Creek Days and Old Gold? Do you see them at Heritage Days in Niagara Grove, and do you see them at the 4th of July in Battle Creek? Do we?
See who?
No.
The
The
band.
So you see the school presidents at Creek Days, Heritage Days for the 4th of July, and
Perfect.
Arthur opted out, so.
and then you take,
parade.
and then you take that and the next step, and you don't have to iron all this out as a board team, but you say to your superintendent, can you, it's important to at least explore this, can you, principal leaders, band instructor, whoever it might be, can you guys grab a cup of coffee and talk about what it would take? Is it doable, how much, when, to start addressing some of those kind of venues? And then as a board, you have to be ready for him to come back and say, yes, we can, here's where we believe we would start, and we're gonna have to put some resources behind it. We gotta set aside $1,500 for a bus to haul kids, for a bus driver, blah, blah, blah. Make sense?
This is the band instructor won't return the phone call.
Right.
What's that?
The band instructor won't return the
Oh.
phone call.
Now, where I
I don't need to put that down.
And you don't, and I'm taking that away from you. You don't have to do the orchestration of that. In fact, I'd encourage you not to. But if it's important to you as a board team, a group of 12, you say to Nick, we need you to explore this and chase it down. I have a suspicion that if it's an activity that can be pulled together, there will be a different kind of response if he and the principal work through that with staff members. And that doesn't need to be your role anyway, just to be frank and honest with you. So it's all, that one you can take off your plate, Pat.
Okay.
And I mean that as a friend, no, serious.
My daughter's trying to get over.
Yeah, no, right. So this isn't a shame on you, I'm just saying, take that off. It's a good example of what's probably more appropriate for the soup to do. I didn't come up here to talk about these things, so you all had to leave with your Franken planner full of things, 22 things each you have to do tonight. If you get the strategic direction, we can see lots of opportunity gradually to connect with community. Nick, we need your energy behind that some. Because the other alternatives, if we don't strengthen that connection, are going to be taking actions that are likely to erode this stuff.
I think we should go a little bit further too.
Do.
What's it take to have a 4th grade class do a play at nursing home?
That's right.
Things of that nature that they feel like they're.
Or you start with 1 or 2. Or the other thing, Nick, you can blame me on this one. We talked about this idea. Mrs. Jones, Mr. Smith, we're going to go do a choral reading or a practice run on like a reader's theater. It's not as, doesn't have all the props like a play. And they were going to go to the local bridge club or a church group or a care center anyway. And typically, the principal isn't necessarily going to go on that sort of trip, or Nick might not. But If your purpose is also to build community connection, that may be a trip you or the principal or somebody else starts to go to, and you take a few slides that show the one-on-one laptops, shots, a few slides of the Falcons, not the Trojans or the Bombers, shows the Falcons who just placed third in the regional or the district cross-country meet. And so the ulterior purpose is to let those seniors see, and you talk about, how many of you were Bombers, how many of you were Trojans, whatever it is, say, you know, one of the cool things to watch is our 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they feel every bit as passionate about being a Falcon as you did a Bomber. What's a fond memory when you were a Bomber, when you were a Trojan? And you engage them in a little conversation, connect the dots with where the kids are now. Heck, sometime have a couple of kids from the ball team or a club, debate club, come with you or the principal and say, thank you to you and the other community members about, we are so grateful to have this building we have here, and let me tell you one of the cool things we're doing in our chess club around that. So they become little, you can't do it on every event, but you start with a couple. What's the alternative? If you don't do that, what happens? Myths continue, people make stuff up, well-intentioned, all that stuff, and then you find yourself boxed into, we gotta make some other decision, what's the impact on this stuff? If you make a more complex, significant decision, what tends to happen to this stuff? You might undo that. Fair enough? That's the most polite way I can say it, and I think it holds promise, not somebody else.
I look at like the week of homecoming. Okay, there's a lot of school spirit the week of homecoming. You know, there's competitions in the buildings between who has the most spirit and decorating and dressing up. You know, that with the surrounding communities, it needs to be year-round, not just the week of homecoming.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, our band used to march in the streets in Battle Creek. You know, I mean, and I know our high school goes to things here in town. You know, they'll go to the Kiwanis meeting at noon, or they'll go to the, nursing home. We do that here because it's convenient, because the high school's here. You know, it works in the time frame, but we still need to involve the other communities, because you still have high school kids that our high school might be here, but they live in Battle Creek.
Right.
You know,
And what's going to be Harry's rule of thumb when you move into some sort of these activities, I'm going to be your nag and conscience from afar, and what am I going to be saying to you, would you guess? Yes, you've got to be doing those things, great opportunities, but you can't do it all at once. So what's my rule of thumb? Start small and grow it. Don't overbite. Don't be like the kid in the candy store going, ooh, I'd like all this.
Well, it could be rotating the homecoming parade between the four communities.
Whatever.
You know, as far as all the activities we do, it's just 1 year it's in Ida Grove, 1 year it's in Battle Creek, 1 it's in Arthur, 1 year it's in Oakland. I mean, there's no reason that each community couldn't host it. And it's on a 4-year rotation.
All those kinds of, yeah, whatever.
That type of thing.
Yeah, I would guess so.
So I'm guessing the other communities, and Ida Grove does a great job of it, but I'm guessing the other 3 communities will go out of their way to help the school host it in those areas. Just to, to have, whether it be Battle Creek or Arthur or Bolter.
And you'll have to put a little bit of resource support behind it, but that's reasonable. You can't expect to do new things without any resources, right? If he starts telling me it's going to cost $5,000 to take the band over to Battle Creek, then I'd probably push back a little bit, but I don't think they do that. All right, you guys share from your conversation what popped up.
We talked about
Big things.
We talked a lot about it too. How do you get the good information on what happens at school out to the community, people that don't have kids at school? And they're the ones that pick up on anything that doesn't go quite right, and to send propaganda out, because like you said, if they don't have the right information, they make something up, and that's the kind of support we need from the community people.
So tell me this, if you want to relay some information about some examples of educational excellence, what's good for kids, you tell me who the non-voting community members, might be seniors, might be some else, who are they most likely to listen and not push back against? Another senior comes in and shares information, the superintendent, a board member, an adult, or a fourth or a 10th grader. I don't see somebody stuck in their ways on being a bomber. They might still be a bomber or Trojan forever, but I don't see them pushing back when a 10th grader has got a smile on their face and talking about the weight room, or we added a second coach, or we had enough kids to have a JV team. I don't see a community member giving that kid one for pushing back. Do you? A 10th grader who's passionate, talking about something? And I see even less likely to push back when a 5th grader is showing the iPad and how they do some science experiment, some math problem, some reading reinforcement they're showing on the iPad. An adult may be thinking, a book was good enough for me, or whatever. I don't think they're going to get in the face of a 5th grader. Do you? My guess is they'll be like my 90-year-old mother-in-law who has an iPad now. They'll be enthralled by watching that kid maneuver around. So that's another thing. He's smarter than I am. He's already thought of that kind of stuff. Are there some strategic ways? Not always. Occasionally, we have kids that go along with the principal or teacher or the superintendent and show their 6 pictures of the track meet or whatever it is, the Falcons, and do that sort of piece. Or greet them when they show up at the ball game in the other community, the junior high ball game, or they show up in this community for the senior high game for their free hot dog, and 3 kids greet them. Let's show you, you should see our locker room. You should see our weight room, blah, blah, blah. You should see our computer lab. Make sense? It's just, it's capitalizing on what you've got going and thinking about how to strategically counter the stuff that is not necessarily accurate. People, it's invisible to folks, they don't see it. What else? We'll wrap up in a couple minutes. Then peek at page 6. Get the glasses back on. I tend to be an optimist. Gets me in trouble sometimes, and but I'm intentional when I'm with any group in my family about talking about things. I get by design. When I came here, and I didn't start saying, "So, are you going to do something or not do something regarding the middle school?" Blah blah blah. Because my point is, revisit what you already have going first. Take a deep breath, step back, think about how do we get to where we are, what's been good about it, how do we continue that moving forward without losing it. And then after you've had that deep breath and had a chance to think about roadblocks, then say to yourselves, 3 months, 6 months, 2 months, a year from now, have we really made a good run at these roadblocks? After we've done that, if we've not been able to address whatever we want, think we need to as a next step, a complex, a big decision, then come to those other big decisions, and I think sometimes they're more significant or drastic, but don't start there. Start with where you are and capitalize on what you've got going first, take the big breath, and then come back and say, it still isn't doing it. Now we've got to look at something that's a bigger decision, a more complex decision. Does that make sense? Or not, does it not make sense? Yea or nay? Otherwise, I don't know how you get at the stability thing that somebody says is important. If you don't just kind of, let's think this through a little more, try some other things as well, and then go on with it if we need to. Yeah. So I'd ask you this, what, you can cross out the 3 and put 1 down there. When you leave this room tonight, what are 1 or 2 essential messages you think as board members and as board teams you ought to, want to, should communicate with your public about the Battle Creek, Ida Grove, Oldebold, Arthur partnership and sharing? What are 1 or 2 essential things you want, ought, need to communicate with the community? Looking for that top left box under 1. I think that my book is the most important on this sheet. I don't care if they answer the rest of the boxes on 1 or any on number 2 yet. Give those essential messages. What are they? If Tony or Kim could hardwire every brain in both districts and they would hear clearly what your message is about your sharing and partnership, what would you want to come through those so clear?
We're better together.
And we need all our things to use in this group.
And to say to your communities, and we've started some conversations about, we recognize there's a lot of room for improvement there. And we can do a better job as districts in connecting with the communities. Yeah? Just acknowledge that. Say, holy smokes, there's a lot of work to be done here. We recognize that, and our commitment is we're going to figure out how to do that more effectively as a school system.
Definitely, I think that wasn't even on anyone's radar. I don't think they did that at all.
You know, you guys all have a life outside of school board work. Well, you're supposed to have a life. Okay.
We're supposed to have a life.
All right, let me rephrase that. In theory, school board members are supposed to have a life outside of school board. I'm serious, though. You have, this is not it's your full-time job. It's not yours.
Thanks for advising, Carrie.
Yeah. It's not your full-time job. You didn't run for the board to do all the gazillion things you had to. My guess is, how many of you have been on the board more than 3-4 years? I'll bet in that time period, you've seen a whale of a lot of stuff come pretty fast. You don't put together a whole grade sharing agreement, share a superintendent, implement technology, get yourself out of red ink and budget cuts, slow down the hemorrhaging of cuts without a lot of work. I get that, clearly. Huh?
3 weeks.
Yeah, right. I'm not listening to Paul anymore. And so that's been a lot of work. And amidst that, what's easy to happen is then, because that's demanding, so you gotta do that stuff. But amidst that, it's easy to not take the reflective time, which is why I said unite. Good for you. You carved out time here and you all showed up. Thank you for your own benefit. To do this kind of reflection. Let's think through where we are before we move forward on something that's gonna undo this stuff. Fair enough? So, I guess my last question to you is, you know, what 3 and 4 at the bottom, just a word or two, what would you say? What's your best hopes moving forward from tonight? Back to Jeff's earlier idea. We're not gonna take care of everything we need to in one night. He was spot on. I hated him saying out loud, but he was right. He was, he is. And 4, what's your biggest concerns? 1 or 2 things moving forward. And then I have one last question that's not on the sheet. here's what I'm wondering about, and I don't know how to do this other than just be blunt. Imagine yourself rating something on a 1 to 4, with a 4 being, you know, what we talked about tonight. I'm pretty confident we can do this. I think we can get this to work. It's not a guarantee, but I think the connecting with the community, engaging the community, being advocates for the benefits, and giving that a good run. I'm pretty confident that that's likely to get us somewhere. A little less confident, this is kind of the dividing point. Or, interesting ideas, Harry, but I'm not confident in this, and we're probably going to have to be looking at something else. So, just want you to think where you fall on this spectrum, would you? Okay with that? Now let's see where your courage is. You open to, on the count of 3, hold up fingers to indicate where you are. And it's okay. Spread wouldn't shock me, and if there's unanimity more one way or the other, that'd be a nice thing to build on. So, okay, good to go with this? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Look around the room. Okay.
That's really
Is that a -2? Is that between a 1 and a 2 or a 2 or a 3? Okay. All right. All right. So,
2.5.
my observation is there's a couple of 2s, at least a couple of 2s. Is that 2.5 or 2.5? A couple of 2s. There's a 2.5. I think I might have seen one, and then the rest were 3s and 4s. Is that right? Then my next question is, despite how confident you may or may not be, I mean, you guys have to decide, do we want to give this a good go and build on this, see where it leads us, and if it's not paying off what we need, then we'll continue, then we'll come back and look at more complex options, possibilities, and ask ourselves before we even move on something that's more complex, what would we want to know before, what kind of things would we need to know before we make those kind of decisions? Does that make sense? And I can email, I've got some questions jotted down here Jane Benz and I played with as I was getting ready for, she was helping me get ready for tonight, we're each other's crutch. And I can just email those to you, and you guys can keep those in mind. But my take would be, I get my car driver away saying, you know, it's not being confident or sure is a good thing if that's where you are, so I respect your honesty. And you're more heavily skewed toward 3s and 4s, but a couple 2s in there, so you know, you're going to kind of have to prove it to yourself as you work through things and give it a go. Anything I can do from here forward to be a help, from a near, from a far, just ask, feed you ideas. If I didn't work for you, we'll get somebody else up here, if that'd be helpful. If you're good to move forward, but you want somebody to, you know, push you a little bit or nag you a couple months from now, like a speakerphone call or Google Hangout or virtual meeting for 15 minutes, you can do that too. So it's like you have to ask for what you need. That makes sense? So I'm not inviting myself back, but I'm saying I'm willing to at some point, me or somebody, if it will continue to be helpful to you. And you can just flip this upside down on your table when you're done. wrap up, could we around the table with question number 3, unless you share your best hope, number 3 off your packet? Just a short phrase, what are your best hopes in the close?
United Front.
Okay, somebody else?
Utilizing the students to promote initiatives.
Somebody else?
We know we are better together and our partnership is a strong one.
Okay, somebody else, thank you.
Tearing open what the true barriers are between the districts.
I hear that one, so.
Tearing open what the true barriers are between the districts.
So that idea of unpacking and identifying what the true barriers really are, yeah. So you got more work to do there, maybe, yeah. Okay.
Follow along the patterns that we have been setting and stay efficient and keep as partners.
Somebody else that hasn't weighed in yet?
Open dialogue, what are our issues, what is holding us back, or
Many broken families.
Any broken fences, okay, somebody else?
Big activity.
I hear what that was.
Staying together, being active on in the communities.
Okay. Who else did not weigh in yet? Jeff, Pat, did you guys have yours?
I don't have an answer.
Okay, appreciate that. Helps to know that. Jeff, how about you?
Have the discussion. We need to talk about it. It has to come out. It has to be talked about.
And what will help you have that discussion?
We're just gonna sit down and talk about it, you know, we're just, you know, gotta be honest about it.
And that piece non-mentionable is the what you do relative to a middle school or not? Anybody else? I'll send you some questions to, 3 or 4 questions I'm thinking of that might be helpful, Jeff, and we'll frame up and have that conversation. While you let the things we spent time on tonight percolate around and say how far will this get us in that, probably the goal, and how much mileage can we get out of the things we talked about in the last half hour. Is that enough to carry us or not? I don't know. May not be.
We need to get rid of that elephant in the room. Everybody knows what it is, and nobody wants to talk about it.
Okay? All right. Anybody want a benediction comment? Again, my thank you to you for the time here tonight. My frame of mind coming up was unpack the stuff we did first, and then figure out the next step, the bigger, more complex decision or decisions you have to take. And these would be kinds of things. I would assume in facing a more complex potential decision like that, to ask yourselves, what would we want to look at before we consider making any significant, or I'll call drastic changes or whatever, all kinds of things. What would we want to consider? What's the impact on kids' learning? What's the impact on our finances? How feasible is that? When districts have had a relationship and then put on the table some complex, pretty big decisions, what happens to that? Is that relationship then, does that move it into a realm where it's beyond restoration, right? Those kind of factors. What's the impact on the community? What kinds of information would we need to have before we'd be ready to even have discussions around that and make complex decisions like that? Those kind of things. I think seeing them in print might be beneficial when they're deciding what we have to do and have that conversation. Okay? Thank you for your time.
What if we want to talk about budget?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I think I could, if your name's on them, would you be willing, the page about roadblocks, I'd like to, Nick, I want a copy before I leave tonight, and Nick said we have a board meeting.
We have a board meeting about a week and a half, I can give you all your packets back.
Is that reasonable by you?
But if you just give me the packets, we'll make copies and then I'll give them back.
Right back there?
If you don't want to, I understand.
Yeah, if you need your packet from Nick sooner than that, let me know.
Yeah, I can deliver it sooner than that, too.
All right, thank you. That'll help me. Thank you for your time. And you can wear the name tag home for a good laugh, or leave it with me and we'll recycle it, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.